So we're really talking about how did we get here? And we've had a little bit of an introduction from Tim and from Lisa about some of the things that we've been doing and what was our plan. I'm going to bring this back again because I know you've heard this twice already, but we started off with a mandate from nationally and provincially about what we were supposed to be doing. Here's the big question. Any of you feel like Woody sometimes? Do you guys know Toy Story? So here's a little tiny, tiny Woody sitting on the end of the pier, and a giant, huge question, what is patient-oriented research? And I think we struggled with that at the beginning because we weren't quite clear what it was. Who did it involve? Who did it include? Who did it exclude? Was it community? Was it hospital? Was it university? What was this? This thing that we didn't know what it was. So we did a clever thing. We went to Banff. When in doubt and you have no idea what you're doing, go to Banff. I suppose if you were in Edmonton, you would say, no, 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 go to Jasper. But I'm not a Jasper fan, I'm a Banff fan. Anyways, so we went to Banff and we had a retreat, a SPOR retreat, kind of on a bigger scale. And we used the opportunity from the CD platform to say, okay, what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? Where are we supposed to go? How do we get there? And just as an aside, anybody in here who's a photographer, I took this picture out of the front windshield of the car as we're driving to Banff. Pretty big, a pretty good picture, eh? From a phone through your windshield, and not bad. So the retreat in Banff was in June 2015, and you think, wow, okay, that's kind of where we started. We invited a real range of participants to come together, patients, students, researchers, program managers, SCN leaders, strategic clinical networks, for those of you that are not familiar with that lingo. And we had 3 breakout sessions to answer the questions, what's our current state and resources? Where are we right now in time? What does the future of capacity development look like? And what are the key steps for moving forward? We did an environmental scan, quite an extensive one. And Melanie Rosario, Melanie joined us, as Diane mentioned, as our associate director. And Melanie was knee-deep in what do I look at and, where is it kind of a stuff. We looked at what was out there now. Who's doing what? We don't want to recreate things if they're already being done. We looked at professional development. We looked at courses. We looked at online materials, series, web resources, whatever was out there. Is there material out there right now? Is there training out there right now to help people develop the skills for patient-oriented research? We also did interviews with a number of people throughout the province, and we also had some discussion groups at the retreat with some of our participants. What's out there? What do we have? What we found was we've got a map of the province. I didn't put it on here because it's a little teeny weeny font, a 4-point, because there's all kinds of stuff going on in the province. What our problem is not connected. It's lots of stuff, happening at U of A, U of C, U of L, in the community with SCNs, with AHS, one-offs, or series of things, but not connected in any cohesive way for somebody to say, yes, I've done some training in patient-oriented research. So that was our first kind of clue. So how do we, what does the future look like? So we asked people in our group, what does the future look like? We said, potentially there's 3 streams of capacity development. Were there gaps or other considerations? Did we have some potential barriers and facilitators? Of course we did. What would they be? Because you get really excited at the beginning of a project and you want to just jump in and do everything, and sometimes that's not entirely possible. Moving forward, who are the critical stakeholders that we need to make sure we keep bringing in the people that are involved? Are there explicit linkages between community-based needs and patient-oriented research? And what are the measurable outcomes? How many of you have done evaluations? Done them as in ran them, and then how many of you have completed them? So we do a lot of evaluations. And what do we typically do? We count, How many people were there? Were you happy? Did you like the food? How was the lighting? Was the speaker engaging? Yes, put down yes for me. No. That's the kind of things we collect typically for evaluation. So we started with looking at this as a puzzle of capacity development in a very simple way. Okay, we have 3 things that we think we're going to do. Scholarships and, oh, look at that. POR training is kind of cut in half. A POR training program, just-in-time webinars and seminars and courses. So a topic comes up and it's new and people need to know about it, we'll do a seminar next week. It's just in time. We don't plan for it till 6 months or a year ahead. And then career laddering and course-based master's degrees. So we thought that would be 3 places for us to start. In career laddering, we thought we could start with, a certificate, work up to a kind of a basic certificate, a more advanced certificate, and then up to a master's degree jointly through the universities. Sounds like a good idea. We thought we'd do this over time. We would do one thing, and then we'd do the next, and then we'd do the next. But, and somebody in the audience said, well, why do we need to do that? Why do we have to do one thing and then the other and then the other? Remember, we're starting with a blank slate. As Lisa mentioned, we actually, where do we go? How do we move this forward? We had no idea. And we're just beginning to get the ideas and bring them together. So the time element, we took our puzzle and we flipped it and said, okay, let's do all 3 of these things at the same time, over time. We don't have to wait until we've got one thing done, the scholarships and the training program. We don't have to wait till we've got that in place before we start the next thing. We can start all of them, one after the other, in a kind of a staggered fashion. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to do? It seemed like the time, in Banff, it seemed like a fabulous idea. But you see, there's this dragon unseen dragon in the room, and this was about career laddering. And the unforeseen challenges is really about who's the intended audience. This is part of all of the things that we're doing. Who's our intended audience? Is it people in the workplace? Is it university students? Is it university faculty? Who is it? Do we want people to have credentials? Do we want them to have a little piece of paper they can put up on the wall? Do we want them to have recognition in the workplace? Do we want this to be, at one point people were talking about, this would be required. You have to do this, credentialing before you can work in clinical trials. Yeah, okay, that idea kind of died on the table. How much does it cost? Are we going to charge learners to come to all of these capacity development sessions? So those are the questions that we kind of struggled with. And the whole idea of having this course-based masters, and it was going to be at universities, it sounds like a really good idea. And as I said, it sounds even better in Banff. But when you get back to the university and to the real world, it's much more difficult and takes a lot longer to do this course-based masters that's credentialed than we probably have time for. This first section is 5 years. And so we said, well, let's think about something else, another way to do this. So we did that. We started on each of these things we started, and we began developing them at the same time. The studentships we offered from 2015 to 2018, 43 studentships. That was the very first thing we started, and we said, oh, I don't know, how do we do that? Just do it. Jump in. It might be a bit wobbly the first year, right, Tammy? Might be a bit wobbly the first year, but you know what? Let's just jump in and do it. And initially only the CD platform sponsored students, and then other platforms came in as well. The training program, and I met somebody today, I don't see where she is, but I met somebody today who came to the training. Oh, she says, are you the one that did the training program thing, you know, in W21C? Yes. And we had these training program webinars, and we had 481 people. Like every month we had webinars, and we had 70 and 80 people attending. These were in person, online, and stuff. Like, people were really interested in what was this all about? How do I get involved? I want to know more about it. And that was great, and that was for probably the first year. And then we said, okay, you know, we can't keep doing the introduction stuff. We got to move beyond that. We got to move to something that's more substantial. And we began having the a new format in 2018 where we had a training program and all the parts were connected, and it really was focused on our graduate students who had studentships. We began the PCT certificate program, and it has been fabulously successful. Would you agree, Mari? Where's Mari? for PCT, for Pragmatic Clinical Trials, and Melanie. We partnered together our two platforms, and we are training people who work in clinical trials. So these are people on the ground, already working, they're not at the university, they carry out clinical trials. So if we want to have better research, better outcomes, and patients involved, where do we need to start? On the ground with people that are actually doing this. So interestingly enough, when we had people involved, they're going back to their units and they are training their PIs. They are bringing patients into clinical trials at the very beginning instead of after the fact and saying, oh gosh, can you do this survey? Because it's, we need some input from patients kind of at the end. No, it's really about bringing patients in the beginning to say, what questions should we be asking? How do we get you involved in these kinds of studies? So for us, it was like boom. And every time the certificate is offered, it's already filled up before it's already hit the press, and the next course is filled up. Do we have space in the next one? Yes? How many spots?
I think there's about 20 left.
Ooh, 20 spots in the next PCT certificate, so sign up today. If you're interested, that is. 129 people have done this, and it's in groups of 30s. You know that people have done this, and what's really amazing is what are they learning? And when we do evaluations, it's not so much how many people, how many hours, what are the topics. What we're finding is the exciting part is what's the impact? What's changing in the workplace? What's changing for people that are doing these studies? What's changing for patients that are involved in the studies? And it's like, wow. And that's something we never could have predicted at the beginning, that it's not about counting, it's really about the impact. And now we're getting better and better at understanding what the impact is. So this is kind of what I was just talking about, is counting the numbers. Okay, that's good. We have to do that because CIHR wants us to. Where's our CIHR person? Because CIHR wants us to count the number of people. That's lovely. But if you come for a lunch and learn session for an hour, is that the same as if you come for 10 sessions for 56 hours in a certificate? No, we don't think it is. It's a much richer, deeper experience when you're coming for the certificate. So there should be a bigger impact. I think the biggest thing that we've found is with our studentships is AI and the evaluation group over there have really put us on to narrative impact statements. And our students then at the end of their year doing the studentship program, they're telling us about their learning experiences and who they met and how their careers change and their plans for the future and how they're getting money and additional funding. And it's like, wow. The stories, again, I'm all about stories. The stories are absolutely fabulous about how people's trajectory is changing because of their involvement with the SPOR unit. So that for us is really the important piece. Now the CD platform isn't the only one that does capacity development. Of course, other platforms do as well. And Lisa mentioned this a little bit, but I wanted to just point out about the KT platform. The KT platform is, can you guys see this from the back? This is quite they've done this in a very nice way to show how all the pieces are connected together, because it's not just about doing one thing, but it's about doing many things. When you hear about the KT group giving consultation in something, do you think that there's also some capacity development occurring? I think there is. Like, people are learning about how to engage patients, how to carry out patient-oriented research. So there's also some other kind of, I would call them almost gray areas, where capacity development is happening within the activities of people carrying those out. I do want to mention that one of the other things that KT is moving on to, and you will see these on your table, about this conference that's coming up, November 25th, 26th to 28th, and there's a website, a link to submit your abstract if you'd like to present. Please have a look at these and see, like, is this something that you'd be interested in? I think that one of the things in health research, which CIHR has pointed out, that we've been missing is we do fabulous research, and this really bugs some people, but we've been doing fabulous research for a long time, health research. Where is it? What changes have we made in our system and in the outcomes of people in our system, in our health system? Well, I know for a fact I've got a number of studies that are in my filing cabinet. I hate to admit that, but I couldn't get them to go anywhere. I couldn't get the results to go anywhere. And we really need to learn how to do that. And the KT platform are superb at this, is really helping you understand how at the very beginning of your study you can start planning how to get the results out into practice. And that's one of the things, if we can only get out to people that, I think that we'll be making a change in the culture in our province. The KT group as well has been working with Melanie and the CD platform to start a certificate in knowledge translation, which I hope that you'll find out about it as soon as it's ready to go, and I hope that it's as well subscribed as our PCT one is, because this is an area that we really need to learn in. They started off with a needs assessment, which is a good place to start. Did some stakeholder meetings and did some training needs survey, a training needs survey to see what do people need to know, how do they need to know it. Literature review and environmental scan of training opportunities, again, within KT specifically. What a competency profile should look like, and then did some curriculum mapping. They've done an interesting way to look at this, and the writing beside each of these little honeycomb things is very tiny, and I apologize for that, but I couldn't figure out how to take the slide apart and make these bigger. So, sorry, Lisa. To make them bigger so you could see them, but the whole honeycomb idea is micro-credentialing, is you can do one piece and another piece and another piece. You don't have to go and spend 2 years in school, which really freaks people out now because you're working and you've got all kinds of other things, and you can't take 2 years off necessarily. So this is a really excellent idea for people to begin to get their development in KT strategies. Patient engagement has also done, and who's our audience? Patient engagement has a really different audience in the sense of community and patients. And it's less about focused training activities, come to a training session or come and do a certificate, and more about working with community groups and helping people understand what patient-oriented research is. They've been doing some priority setting with clinical, strategic clinical networks, respiratory health, depression, and critical care, and that is a learning exercise as well. They've done, as Lisa mentioned, the online patient and family registry, helping people get on the registry, finding out what research is out there, getting connected with researchers connecting with patients, and it's really about underlying all of this is capacity development. They're looking at online study modules as well, because it's very helpful. Instead of having patients realize that they often have some health issues as well, so getting people to come into someplace, particularly, I'll have to speak for University of Calgary, parking's abysmal. It's expensive and it's hard to find any place to park. So, asking patients to come in and park and walk and all that kind of stuff is really difficult. So having online modules is a perfect way to really have people engage with each other, but not have to drive. They have also developed some how-to guides for patients and researchers. They provide travel awards for patients to get to places where they can do capacity development. And they've done an animated informational video to talk about who is the patient. Where to next? Well, you can think about this as a challenge, so there's always a hill to climb, or you can think about this as an opportunity, that there's always a hill to climb, and yes, let's do it. Let's work together and climb that hill and see where we can go. I think one of the things that we discovered from Banff, we said, okay, what are we gonna do? What? We didn't say, how are we going to do it? We didn't really get to that piece of it. And what we've discovered is technology has made this, we've been able to facilitate a lot of different training and capacity development activities and grown so much in that direction because of the technology and being able to reach the province without people leaving their living rooms or changing out of their pajamas or whatever. Just make sure your camera's covered if you're in your pajamas. I've done that before, that's very terrible. Where I think we can go with this, climbing this hill, it can't possibly be a mountain, but it's a hill, is really more collaboration with our partners in the community, and that's really where we're paying attention right now, is how can we collaborate more with our partners. We need to actively create opportunities, and we also need to be ready to jump when there are opportunities presented to us. And part of that has to do with new technologies, is really understanding what those are and how we could use them. I'm going to come back to the mountain again because it sounds like Mohammed in the mountain, doesn't it? This is Banff again. But really, I think is to continue to have a vision about where we're going and maintain our excitement and enthusiasm, which we have, getting ready for 2.0 and where we're going is we've got so many supporters and so many people that are interested in working in patient-oriented research. I think we've got a great future ahead of us. Thank you.